Hello everyone, welcome to Satsang. Sorry for the delay, some problems with connection. Let's make some silence first. Empty yourself of everything. Nothing really important. Okay, so today we're going to speak about sacredness and spiritual disciplines. So spiritual disciplines, meditation, it has the purpose of removing all the space of the character. And as meditation is practiced with the goal, with the divine goal, it is making attunement with sacredness, and that sacredness is taking the place of the character. So for the spiritual disciplines to be effective, you have to understand that there mustn't be any room whatsoever for the character. So spiritual practice is 24/7. So that spiritual practice of, and that doesn't mean that it is only meditation, because that wouldn't be possible for the majority. But whatever you're involved in, it must have this connotation with the sacred, so that you do not leave any room for the character to expand. So if you're practicing 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours meditation, and the rest of the time you're taking care of the necessities of the character, disengaged with any spiritual practice, you are opening the space for this character, this mundane character, to continue to evolve and grow. And the time you have in spiritual practices, you are reducing this space. Meditation, either you focus on silence or in a technique or whatever it is, this focus, this constant focus, constant attention, it is taking attention out of the character's needs, subjects, the character's world. And if you're doing this for a certain amount of time, and then you go back to normal mode of the mind, then this time you're feeding and increasing the character's needs. So this is going counter. So this attunement, this constant attunement with sacredness, meditation must continue until guidance says to stop. And that should come at the time where sacredness can be maintained, the attunement with sacredness can be maintained continuously. Or at least it has the possibility to strive for that. So in the beginning, the mind should always be engaged in spiritual practice. This is what will help, because sacredness is not something that is really possible without some work, without some elevation of the vibration. As the vibration is too dense, this sacredness, this reverence, devotion, these are not possible. And this is one thing that it is quite difficult these days. The majority of seekers have lost sacredness. You see, in these spiritual places, you see all these gestures of reverence, these looks of transcendental looks and all of that, but that's just superficial, because real sacredness is missing. So this initial stage, this initial work, It has to be very intense. It is very intense because the intensity of your practice will start burning all these needs, desires, all these things of the character, opening space for reverence, devotion, sacredness. And in the beginning, it is very difficult. So your spiritual practice, it is bringing an intense amount of energy, of nurturing, of food. But what is it feeding? In the absence of sacredness, it feeds the character also. I will repeat again. In the absence of sacredness, it feeds the character also. The majority of this energy goes to the character. So if you're practicing meditation as a mechanical thing, you have the practices, there is this moving of energy, there is this energy coming down, but what is there receiving? It is the character, so it gets nurtured also. And the majority goes to him. So it's like wasting time. It's not really wasting time, because eventually, at some point, if you're sincere, what will happen is frustration will be there, because you're not moving. So there will be frustration, and that frustration will help you to become more humble, and that humbleness will help you to touch sacredness. But it has to make all that journey for it. So it is very important that you're always engaged in spiritual practice. If you're not meditating formally, you can do mantra, for example. You can practice stillness of the mind. Another example, depending on the kind of work you are doing. All these circumstances that in the beginning you must improve using what you have at hand, and try to improve the circumstances that will allow you not to distract from sacredness, and to be able to continue with spiritual practices and intensifying these practices. So 24/7, there mustn't be any space for distraction. Mind should be as a tool, at either it is being specifically used for a task, or it's not moving, it is there still. So these daydreamings, these wandering thoughts, all these things, there mustn't be room for this. You have to be diligent in pursuing this state of constant focus. If you're in this level, beginning stages of meditation with a technique, a formal technique, then you should continue and persist. If you have moved beyond this and you're more into silence, so this is what you must hold. No room for the character to relax. This relaxing is that you can breathe in. Oh, let me rest a little bit. What is resting there? Who is resting there? Who is getting the relief? Surely the one who is being put inside the oven with high temperatures, the character. And this breathing, this relief, It is temperature going down and giving space again for the character to continue with his story, with his existence. So this fire, this energy of the spiritual practice, it cannot be put in favor of your personal plans, of your personal ideas. You cannot, how do you say this? There's no way. I will change a little bit so that I can give you the idea. Uh, you see, the divine, you cannot reach it by greed. And when sacredness is absent and there is the quest, greed is there in its place. And there is this idea that enlightenment is something that I will acquire eventually. But it isn't. It is something that you surrender to, not something to be acquired. And it's not a game of words. The one who is trying to acquire that is in a high throne, very important. And only the best for the best. He is proud, he moves through greed. And this is the majority, the moment that the majority is, and you need to come out of this. The divine is something you surrender to. And the practice of surrendering, everybody is waiting for the right master. And the right master, the majority of times, has to do with that figure, if it is a figure, that will not bring the fears out of me, the one that I can trust completely, feel safe, that's what it means. But you have to understand that that will never happen. It cannot happen. Because the practice of surrendering, it's not through safety, and it is your benefit, no one else. So you have the need to gain humility. No one else. So things will come. A master will come, for example, and will push your buttons. It will give even it will give you impressions. There's other things, but that's okay. It will give you the impressions for you to make a choice. I hold on to my old standards, or I surrender. Not through safety, through doubt, through confusion. And if you're not ready for this, not working in your own humility, you won't be able to pass. And is your loss. Your loss. So the practice, the spiritual practice, close to it, there has to be the practice of humility, making yourself humbler and humbler, and there is hundreds of situations daily. Is it an exaggeration? Hundreds? No, it isn't. For you to humble yourself in any situation, in any conversation, there is something that comes for you to assert yourself, to be right, to do this, to do that. And this, in discussions and all of this, your point of view, Everything is an opportunity to be humble, to be quiet, to quiet down. Don't, for you to not leave this opportunity for the character to grow, to become more important, to try to be important. All foods that the character needs and takes, they have to be cut. Without humility, there will not be any real reverence, any real sacredness. By greed, you shall not pass. It is not something you acquire, it's something you surrender to. And the attitudes into these two different sentences, the attitudes are very, very opposite from one another. The one who is surrendering to the divine, but not as a bargain means, because there is this also. Those who are very eagerly surrendering, but as a way to bargain something. So, the ones who are surrendering to the divine and the ones who are trying to acquire it, to reach it, to conquer it, different attitudes. And each seeker will have its own difficulties with this surrendering. There will be those who are surrendering as a means to an end. There will be others who are trying to achieve it. There will be others who only surrender as a means to an end. It goes to the same. There are different expressions of this, but in the end, it is the same. So every time, the beginning for the seeker of truth is very important. Intense spiritual practice, constant 24/7. And the measure for that is your humility growing. Are you becoming quiet when your whole nature wants to rebel against, to be right, to win the conversation, whatever it is, to answer back? Or are you taking every opportunity, not bothering about others' ideas about you, uh, all fears that are coming about self-importance and all of this, and holding on to spiritual practice? Because if it's not 24/7, it's not there yet. And that should be a goal. Keep up the attunement, maintain it 24/7. So in the beginning, sacredness. There are some that can touch it, but they, how do you say this? Underestimate it, play it like something. There is a term for this, but I don't remember. Like something normal. Banalize it. But sacredness, there's also another name for sacredness, which is silence. When we speak about silence, usually those who are not familiar with silence with a capital S, they take it as absence of noise, concentration, or less. But it isn't. It is much more than that. It is sacredness. It is a body, and it has much more names that I will not use them now at this point, maybe in another context. So as long as there is random thoughts going on in the mind, occupying yourself with things of the character, his preferences, fighting for his needs, big ones, small ones. It doesn't matter because it is in the details and depends on the context that you are. If you find yourself busy with these things, making impression in others, be better, giving a certain idea, whatever, then time is being wasted and you're allowing for space for the character to continue, to evolve, to adapt to the spiritual practice. And it makes it difficult, more difficult and more difficult and more difficult. The more the character adapts to spirituality, the more difficult it becomes. The example of putting the character in the oven without any spaces is the best one there is, at least for now. The best one that comes, because there is no room and it's roasting. And as intensity increases, this is the experience. So if you're not ready for that, not mature, if you don't understand what is happening, you will not arrive at this point. But if you would stop whatever you were doing every practice, because it's not natural. It doesn't feel natural. But the more this character burns, more space there is for the divine to fill in. And as you are tuning and meditating, the divine is coming. It's like filling the spaces, purging that which is unimportant, which has to go. Some things go easier than others because some things you give more importance than others. And as it is going, parts of you are going because you are identified with all these things. So everything which is connected to spirituality has to be taken as sacred. Eventually, all of your world has to become this. But as you still have a distinction between worldly and divine, the divine part should be always taken as sacred. And with that which is sacred, you don't judge, you don't evaluate, you surrender to. So these gossipings, these opinions, evaluations, all of this, the seeker of truth has to get away from this, get away from this. Evaluations have to be there, for sure, but they should last just a little bit. In the absence of guidance, if guidance sends you there, surrender, whatever that means. If you have gone through your own means, testing should be there, but then it is tested, then surrender. Because this jumping, okay, testing, now I've surrendered, then I test again, then I surrender, I test again, this doesn't work. And understand that surrender is your need. So if you're waiting for those circumstances that I've described previously, that you can surrender to, that are the right ones. What does this mean, the right ones? You're the one who is in need to surrender, so surrender in all occasions. Use every opportunity. Those that you think are good, those that you think are not good, surrender, it is your game. And the more you do that, the more the temperature of the oven increases, the more space there will be. Safety and all those things may be good for spiritual communities, for a lot of things. But for the seeker of truth, the one who is in the quest of enlightenment, there's no room for safety. No room. He jumps off the plane, no parachutes. If he doubts of the divine, then go bake some cake or whatever, because what's the point? And the part that 24/7 focusing on your spiritual practices, this is crucial. Because if you're practicing in these established moments and then mind is relaxed in its normal functioning, doesn't go anywhere. For those who have done this, and for those who have been trying to maintain focus all the time and are succeeding a little bit, you know already the difference between one thing and the other. And it is very, very, very important. If you're building a house, you put a little wall here, a door there, and eventually you make a kind of a puzzle. You put the roof on top, a little wind comes and it falls down. You start below from the foundations. Spiritual practice is the foundation. What prepares, what takes care, puts everything in its right place. And if the desire for liberation is there, that is your responsibility. That is your need, your interest. And if you're really eager for freedom, you're really intensely desiring freedom, there is this call in your heart that you cannot deny, it doesn't give you any rest. But still, you're lacking humility and you're asking for guidance, praying for that guidance. That guidance will open up your skull and will bring you humility, or you will give up and go away from guidance. For every problem, for every situation, there is a solution. Some solutions are better than others. That depends on the nature of the problem, of the nature of the blockage. If the need is there, the calling is there, and if you're praying intensely, things will come. But if you're not ready, understand they will come in the way that you need, not the way that you think it should come. And for those who are not prepared for anything else and can only receive guidance by blessing, and in the times that humanity is going, the majority, it's only by blessing, because by merit, complicated. But it doesn't matter. What matters is if it comes. So by coming, understand that it can and it will be a lot different from your expectations, and it will come in a way that will force this state of mind that will help you to reach this level. For example, these words that I'm using, most of them, or some of them, makes a few of you like, oh, there's, and this is opportunity. Hold on to your concepts if you're holding on to your concepts and just flowing with them, classifying good or bad according to what is there. Where are you going? What are you transcending? Nothing. You're just moving inside your world. Nothing is changing. So by putting these words like this, with this tone of voice, I'm giving an opportunity, for example. Every moment you are making decisions, and those decisions bring you closer to the divine or increase the distance. This sentence, it is like this. For some, not all, but for some, depending from where you're coming. Don't wait for situations that you can surrender to, because that's not surrendering. It isn't, and it has no power, no transformative power. English complicated. It hasn't. Use every opportunity. And this distinction, so I go to a master, I bow down. That's not really surrendering. If reverence is not in the heart, it is better to surrender to your friend or companion or parent or whatever that is telling something that you don't agree, and you don't let this come out and increase and affirm. You use all opportunities to practice humility. Another factor which is quite good and helps, and usually you don't like, is intense physical work. That is a very helpful tool in the hands of the seeker of truth for a lot of reasons, a lot of them. Intense physical work makes this mental agitation reduce if it is intense. If it's just doing something but in a how do you say this, a light way, it gives room for this mental restlessness. If it is intense, it takes you immediately out of your comfort zone and doesn't give room for this mental agitation. But eventually, spiritual practices 24/7 with attunement to the divine, with your heart filled with sacredness, with reverence. That is the pristine state of the seeker of truth. And at that point, as he gets established completely on sacredness, then that becomes a spiritual practice, nothing else. Then he has to remain there in that sacredness. Nothing else is required. Okay. So if there's questions about this, you can send now. I will make some silence with all of you. And WhatsApp is here, so if you send, it will vibrate and I will answer. It doesn't disturb whatsoever. Okay, so it's all for today. As it is being informed for those who are working seriously and feel the need, I'm available now for individual private meetings. For serious purposes, of course. Please respect that, okay? So it is all for today. Keep up the practices, make it real for you. Till next time. Next satsang in English will be Saturday, 9 a.m. UTC minus 3. 10? Okay, 10. 10 a.m. Saturday. Okay.